and the Holy Spirit.
Amen. Please be seated. There are times when we hurt each other, and it's usually unintentional, but sometimes it's because what we want is bumping up against what somebody else wants. And there are ways that we typically respond to being hurt. Sometimes we just plain out want revenge. We want an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. If you hurt me, I'm mad at you, and I want you to hurt. That happens. There are times when we're hurt, we are so hurt that we freeze. And we basically, in the darkness, don't know where to move. There are times when we're hurt that we run. Whoever has hurt us, the last thing we want to do is to be in their presence because we feel vulnerable, they can hurt us again, and we leave. We leave the relationship, we leave the area, we leave. We even might just leave emotionally. But we're called to forgive. That is the option that when we are hurt, we are called to choose. Now, in the times that Jesus is talking about, in Old Testament times, the Pharisaical response to forgiveness, to being hurt, is forgiveness 3 times. And when we're hurt deeply, 3 times is a lot of forgiveness. It's hard sometimes for us to forgive once. So the Pharisaical, the law, if you will, saying forgive 3 times is already a lot. Now, Peter, of course, knows that law, as does Jesus. And Peter has been walking with Jesus. He's one of his disciples. And he's learned from Jesus that we go beyond the law. So Peter offers to Jesus, Lord, is it 7 times we forgive? And I can imagine that Peter probably was expecting Jesus to say, you got it. Good job. And unfortunately, that's not what Jesus says. In today's translation, we have Jesus says not 7 times, which echoes not even 3 times, not 7 times, 77 times. In some translations of this text, it says 70 times 7. And the idea is it is so many times that you've lost count. It is an endless number of times that we are supposed to forgive people who hurt us and come asking for forgiveness. The gospel today gives us an overarching understanding of how to do that, because it seems just absolutely impossible to us to imagine that. Jesus tells the story of a king who is having an audit, and you can understand the king's anxiety when he bumps into this huge debt that one of his servants had racked up. We have no idea what the servant was doing to rack up a debt like this, but he racked up this huge debt. And in today's terms, it would be approximately $3 billion. Don't go there. $3 billion of debt. And so he calls the servant into his presence for an accounting, and the servant asks, please, have patience. Now, it's an absurdly large debt, and to ask for patience is an absurd request. There is no way that a servant can repay, in anybody's idea of a lifetime, $3 billion. The king goes a step further than just giving him patience. The king says, I'm going to forgive you your debt, and you are free to go. Huge. There's no way that the servant even was imagining asking for a forgiveness of his debt, and yet that is what the king gives him. And this is an important turning point, because the servant goes out and bumps into a fellow servant who owes him 1/1,000,000th of a debt. He actually, in today's numbers, would owe him about $3,000 compared to the $3 billion. And the words that his fellow servant uses are the same words that the servant just used with the king. Please have patience with me. And the first servant, who was forgiven so much, says, no. You are going to jail until you can pay that debt, which of course he can't pay from jail. The king gets word of this, and he is so angered, he takes away the gift that he has given of giving up the debt of the original servant, and not only puts him in jail, but says that he's going to be tortured. We can identify with some of this. What we want lots of times when somebody hurts us is the same kind of thing that the servant who bumped into his fellow servant does. Okay, I'm free. I got my forgiveness. This is good. And you know what? We're going to go back, and I'm a leg up now. I'm forgiven. But you who owe me, you need to come up. You need to understand that you can't do this. You need to understand that you need to give me what is my due. It is a hardness of heart. Our call today is to realize the love and the forgiveness that we all have been given. To let the God who is incredible, omniscient, overwhelming, brilliant love washes over us with forgiveness. We are bathed in love and forgiveness beyond what we even knew to ask for. God gave Jesus, his only Son, to hang on the cross for us so that we could be forgiven that way. And when Jesus is hanging on the cross between two thieves, he says, Father, forgive them. We've been forgiven. We have been blessed beyond our imaginations because we know in our hearts of hearts that we don't deserve it. And yet, God knows all those things about us that are in our heart of hearts, and still forgives us, and still welcomes us, and calls us his children, and loves us. So our charge is to act like we are the beloved, forgiven children of God. And when we go out in the world, and when someone hurts us, because somebody will hurt us, to offer forgiveness, knowing how amazingly forgiven and loved we are. To share that with thanksgiving. In praise of God. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.